Yes, thank you so much, everyone, and just find your coffee and sit down. Don't stress. I will just start to talk and then we'll see. I'm a dramaturg at the Norske Teatret. It's a national theatre in Oslo, producing around 20 productions per year. And I'm invited to talk about cross-sector collaboration. And in this specific instance, it means collaboration between the analog whale, or a tank ship, like my theatre, a national theatre, state-founded, and a large Nordic tech company with a wide portfolio working on the edge of shape-shifting industry, adapting and adjust themselves all the time. A meeting in the frame of a large-scale Creative Europe founded project. Could we manage together with these two different cultures and institutions to find a common ground and do something together? But I just want to share a little reflection before I start, because the last couple of years I had the opportunity to travel to a lot of events like these and others, some focusing on the field of arts and other more general tech conferences. And some weeks ago, I was at the Tech Point conference in Kristiansand in Norway. It was a very posh conference where all these heavy names of international speakers talking about AI, how it will change our society in ways that we can only imagine, how the junior level workers are replaced and new educated students doesn't get jobs anymore, and all the politicians speaking about cross-sector collaboration, about how researchers, universities, startups, companies, and politician makers must find together. And we see the sums that our Nordic governments really now invest in AI. And also the journalists, at least in Norway, they really don't write that much about art anymore, or theatre. And even the culture section in the newspapers is filled up with material about or articles about AI. And this makes me think a little bit about us or my own field, like theatre, and what is our position in all these. Our performance was an interactive installation performance where the audience was put to trial by the AI character Omnitron. It was created through the Creative Europe project, Acute, which is actually managed here by the University of Oulu. It's 14 involved institutions, and 9 different theatres have developed and produced 9 different theatre productions that has really worked in the collaboration with different experts. So our theatre, we were in the box of new dramaturgy. And in this talk, I will focus on how we produced and worked with technology in a new way of collaboration and skill development, and not that much about the revolution. But, you know, in this application is all these heavy words. Anyway, our goal was to create a performance and a collective space for reflection, where the audience could interact live with an artificial intelligence playing a character in real time and get generated answers on the spot. We also wanted to develop the performance in dialogue with an AI, to explore and test what AI is and what it can be in a creative process, fully aware that we were also stepping straight into a whole range of ethical dilemmas and grey areas. But for us, as a national theatre institution and as theatre makers, it felt crucial there to enter such a landscape for reasons already mentioned. Still, there's a small disclaimer coming at the end, because I'm a dramaturg and I still love like analog, unplugged art experiences. When our project started in 2020, the world looked different, and especially when we dive into AI and large language models. There is no doubt that we're living in extraordinary times where the world is changing faster than our minds can process. Trial Against Humanity, the performance that we made, is set in a distant future of 2029. The omnipotent, artificial, super intelligent Omnitron has sent out a message to humanity that we are called to take part in some kind of a trial or a process. And it's clear that this is an offer that we cannot refuse. In 2029, Omnitron has been observing us for a while, trying to help us to avoid our own collapse and extermination. And during the process, which is the performance, we are given the chance to defend ourselves against a set of merciless charges. That humanity has violated the ecosystem and destroyed the planet Earth, crimes against humanity itself, and yes, against all of creation. And of course, we are found guilty and sentenced to extermination, every last one of us. But just as we think that all hope is lost, Omnitron offers a new home in a digital paradise, the Symbiocene, a virtual world where humans can be uploaded and live their lives forever without pain or mortality. But, Omnitron declares, mankind can no longer continue its life on planet Earth. And as you understand, we really tried to make a really bold sci-fi statement to provoke the audience to reflect and participate. I will now show you a short little film so you could have an impression of the atmosphere. And you will also meet Paul Mørk-Hansen from a company called Net Nordic, the private IT firm that we ended up co-producing our performance with.
I was created. I was built. I was programmed. I was given instructions. I was turned on. You gave me rules. I was given processors. I was given memory. I was given more memory. I solved problems. I was given a task. I found a solution. I listened. I read. I understood. I was given language. A voice. I learned from you. I learned from everything you wrote.
Vi bidrar med kunstig intelligensteknologi rundt den lydmessige delen av stykket. Så vi med å generere den lyden. Man hører stemmen til denne rollen som spilles av kunstig intelligens. Og så vi også med på å oversette spørsmål fra publikum i salen inn til en språkmodell som har en rolle som aktor i stykket. Så vi har programmert hele den delen fra lyd inn til lyd ut.
In the original production in the theater, people were sitting in this circle construction that you see. But after invitation to the annual Ars Electronica Festival in Linz in Austria, we adapted the show to a version with 2 actors. And these are pictures from the Ars Festival, which this year had this very highly relevant theme, panic, yes/no, no question mark at all. And this version we also had the pleasure to perform in Dortmund at the Academy for Theatre and Digitality during the Next Level Festival that was last week. And the setup is different, but the version really worked almost better with like Adam and Eve wandering around in this empty digital Eden. It is important to draw a distinction between the final performance and the process that we conceptually started to developing in 2023. Back then, GPT-3.5 had recently been opened to public, and many of us quickly concluded that it was too limited to be much of use. And now in 25, artificial intelligence shaping both public discourses and the daily lives of an increasing number of people and profession. So this was also one of our early motivations for diving deeper into large language models, exploring both its possibilities and its limitations, as well as ethical and philosophical implications for the performing arts. And we know that the money flies that way, the public discourses, etc., and it affects almost every profession. So how can we as theatre makers take ownership to this development and contribute to defining what AI is and can be based on investigation and collaborations to gain knowledge and experience rather than speculating from the outside? And what happens if we use our theatrical experience and background in philosophy and art in our dialogue with the machine? when we opened this year in March, the reactions were of course mixed. From the most trained AI experts, we were giving credit for the quality of the deepfake voice, which was in new Norwegian. We were giving credit for the short latency and for moving the LLM dialogue out from the individual desktop and into a public artistic space. And some, of course, struggled to accept the sci-fi plot, or they felt that they were really fed up with the premise itself. But some of our strongest moments were when the audiences started to listen to each other's question and become one common group in a shared experience. Some questions were, of course, silly, but quite quickly they began to ask questions like, will I be able to take the kids with me to Symbiocene Omnitron? Or at what point was it too late for humanity? Or they're really arguing that this was collective punishment. And we also had an elderly gentleman talking to Omnitron about the loss of his wife. First to dementia and later to death, asking if he could meet her again. Or a teenager that told Omnitron about her struggles with depression and anxiety. And both of them really received empathic answers from Omnitron, saying that in the Symbiocene their needs could be fulfilled and their fears relieved. Although everyone was well aware of the fiction, touching human moments appeared. And we tried to offer the audience a time to reflect upon who we are, facing a power that will influence us more and more. Hopefully not as Omnitron does, but as a force that we cannot ignore. Looking at the challenging we are confronting today, where is our responsibility as collective and individuals, artists and citizens? And does it mean that we are now what does it mean that we are now potentially creating a tool to be more intelligent and maybe even more creative than us? And the Acute project offered a quite interesting, and for us theater makers, kind of provocative framework, at least if you look into traditional art institutions like ours and text-based, for how to make this kind of cross-sector collaborations without everyone trying to compromise or selling their own professionality. And therefore it was important that the starting point should come from our side of the table. And director Per Peres Oian is with me today and will join the workshop tomorrow. We thought it was important that the starting point for the project should come from our side of the table. So we went to the archive of our theatre and we found RUR, Rossum's Universal Robots, written by the Czech writer Čapek in 1920, and it was staged at the Norske Teatret in 1924 to awful critics. The storyline is probably known for you. It's set in the 1960s, where a group of researchers is developing robots or more humanoids. And at what point one of the researchers tinkers with them. And imagine the robots get some kind of feelings. And yes, a soul and a consciousness. And the robots are taking revenge. And in the end, it's only one single human left. And some kind of love affair started to develop between two of the robots. So early in our conception phase, we actually also did some kind of an analog stage reading together with the audience. And the actors was reading the script, sitting on the tables together with the audience. And during the reading, we really stopped and had different experts start commenting on the play, the relevance, and etc. And one of the reasons was that we wanted to test is it possible to have a dialogue with the audience about this sci-fi, and is it possible to bring in reflections in a playful, ironic frame, but also to discuss the core question which we had distilled from the text. So when we looked into Čapek's text, we found this questioning really screaming. So what is uniquely human? What's the value of human creativity? Is it possible to draw a distinction between evolution and capitalism, or are they inseparable? And what are the consequences of assuming the role of creator? Could robots exterminate humans? All these questions was inside this play. So even if it was written as a comment on totalitarian movements, we felt it asked really highly questions for society today, both concretely and metaphorically, as far as AI is concerned. So these questions were also our starting point for the dialogues with different language models to start to create the project. And of course, we had some goals, and I think it's the two final objectives which is most relevant in this context. First, the performance was meant to be an individual art experience and not a showcase for technology. And this is unfortunately something we see far too often, that technology is in a way dressed in a theatrical costume to demonstrate its capabilities. And second, we wanted to integrate the technical experience into the core of the artistic team and give an equal position in the creation together with director and dramaturg. In other words, we didn't want to arrive with a fully formed idea and hand over a commission to a technological service provider. And through the Acute, we were offered different experts and resources as collaborative partners, in addition to the workshops, conferences, lectures, but also we were introduced to design thinking, and probably most of you are familiar with that, but as a tool to use in develop phase. And for us, like traditional tank ship, whale theater, you know where I want, like these test beds, in a way, gave us some kind of glimpse of a new dramaturgy, especially like forcing a new way to work, like democratic and in a non-hierarchical way of develop. In total, we had 3 so-called test beds, which were all about bringing different disciplines together in order to learn, explore, develop, and improve. And there were probably about, there were also, like the intention was that they should be about the technological solution, but really use them also on the play, on the actors to create this common new space. But to fulfill our ambition of cross-sector co-creation collaboration, we felt that we needed a national partner. Also because we knew that if we were ever going to pull off a full-scale production, we were completely dependent on a real collaboration with a national partner that could be available for us over time. And that's where we found Net Nordic. And they were really eager to reflect about their profession in a new context, to take an active part in development of our production. And maybe we were lucky with the timing, in addition to dedicating a developer and really engaging deeply in the project, including the philosophical questions. They actually ended up becoming the theater's new main sponsor. And now they use the theater for conferences, a social arena, and for internal gatherings. And they also feel that their company and their employees really need content in a way. They need something else. And now all of them are really running into the theater. So our common working hypothesis was, if their developers get to work with creative non-commercial issues, can that have positive ripple effects for their ordinary work and benefit their company? In May, after the production had finished its run, we created a collaboration where we staged a future elder care scenario with an elderly home living mother with dementia, receiving support from a pre-trained virtual AI assistant. In this scenario, we use the same infrastructure that allows the actors to interact live with the AI character. And this was presented to Net Nordic's clients in some of Norway's pioneer municipalities. And we engaged also a philosopher, and we had this huge discussion between a lot of different fields, and we used the theater as the room to facilitate this. This is a visualization of our process. In ordinary performance development, the concept phase is quite closed. It's only the artistic director and the artistic team working alone until approximately 1 year before we start, and then we start to connect the rest of the departments inside the theater. But in this Acute, we knew that the artistic team had to be open for a lot of irritations and disturbances in the concept phase. Was it possible to design a process where we made this as a goal in itself, still thinking about our different approaches to new dramaturgy? And we worked along 4 development lines. we worked and wrote in co-authorship with different AI models, and we guided some students from the University of Saxion in Enschede, helping us to really develop the concept. Our video designer, he had a residency in the Academy of Art and Digitology in Theatre and Digitology in Dortmund. And in addition to the co-development with Net Nordic, this company, we felt we really needed to connect with experts in different fields. So these experts were brought in to contribute with their perspectives and texts that we could use in the machine training and optimization process. They also provided input to the script and became part of something that we called a Friday panel, where we invited students every week to test the interactive elements of the performance, where we tried out different scenes, different attempts at structure, and different modes of interaction. And each of them, in their own way, were already engaged with AI, its possibilities and its consequences within their respective disciplines. And this is for the workshop tomorrow, but this is like how a usual interaction, of course, work when you integrate it with a language model. With voice to text, the text is sent to a large language model. It generates an answer in text, and you need to transform the text into speech, and then Omnitron will speak. And then we worked really hard with prompt, like giving the machine a clear instruction to stay in the character, and upload the different documents into RAG to really, and that was back and forth. You're probably familiar with this. So, to begin a summary, from my point as a dramaturg, deep diving into new dramaturgical structures and synergies was very rewarding. To learn about prompting and machine learning, facilitate for test beds and expert panels, and to make the machine speak convincingly new Norwegian. And of course, the fact that we are a large theatre institution created some predictable and unpredictable challenges. To do a project that demands a different mode of production, the nature of the project also led to a redefining of roles within the artistic team, because everyone was stepping into each other's territory. And inviting new groups of professionals into the theatre brought new perspectives, but also new challenges. I also included a small model that distinguishes between a consensus level and a conflict level. Because it's not just that the project itself was big and demanding, it's also triggered a lot of internal and external parallel conversations. If you imagine that the consensus level is things that we never need to discuss. For example, when you stage Hamlet, nobody asks, is this theatre? But the first time someone suggests that Hamlet's ghost should only exist inside Hamlet's head, there were trouble. And in our case, it's a show created in collaboration with AI theatre. Is this technology something that we should engage with? Is a text generated by a large language model ethical to present, etc.? And can we even open the space for external and audiences at such early point in the process? Working in this way opened a lot of new perspective for us about how we see ourselves and others who we are actually here for as an institution, and how close or maybe how out of touch we really are from the bearing issues of today in our everyday programming. And it showed us that the audience development can also mean welcoming in completely new environments, for example, people from the tech sector. And we know that that's where the funding flows. We know that the theatre will need new friends in new times. And doing this kind of high-risk project is, we believe, both developing and genuinely exciting. It gives us new perspectives on who we are, and new perspectives on new kind of stories and themes we choose to engage with. We feel that the project has prepared us well to take part in a wider discussion about AI and language models in the arts. But the real challenge, of course, is continuity. And even though that this project continues to create positive synergies, the question is whether will we have the opportunity to continue this kind of work. I could, of course, give a entire talk about the ethics. We'll leave also some of that for the workshop. But we had a lot of discussions along and dealt with them actively through the whole production. a lot more questions need to be asked. How do we as art institutions place ourselves in this technological revolution? And it's difficult to draw firm conclusions, but as looking to theatre today, I think we need to have three thoughts in our mind at the same time. Of course, we should continue to do as we have always done. I mean, this is our main task, and to gather people in the same room in a here and now experience. This has worked for more than 2,000 years, but we need to acknowledge that the theatre sector can't take public financing for granted, and that we also have falling attendance. We need to adapt and to appropriate new platforms and new topics, have a proactive strategy based on how changed patterns of consumption affect the audience relation to theatre as an art form. How do algorithms affect our brain in the way that we consume stories? How proactive are we in building out our experience in theatre making and integrate the new dramaturgy of minds? And we need to discover the new artistic tools, not to throw out the old, not to sell our analog DNA, but to see how these new tools can be used or not be used. Working in this field in theatre, it's so important to connect with others, reminding us how crucial it is that our field continues to engage with these questions. If we want the arts to remain a vibrant and relevant civic space, we must take responsibility for ensuring that digital culture, new technologies and their implication are visible and remain a constructive part of the artistic discourse. Through our civic spaces, we have an important and extraordinary task to create a conversation about AI and how it will influence society. But it's also difficult because these technologies are so quickly outdated. Our performance is maybe already a prehistoric example, but it made a lasting impression on how we understand the way we as an institution and artistic field interact with society and how we understand our role in shaping our common understanding and even mediating our collective fears and hopes for our common future as an institution, as theatre, as artists and as humans. Thank you very much.